Hey, legends, welcome back. In this episode, we are talking about thriving under pressure. We're talking with Randelle Lusk, who is the owner and leader at Rare Method. She's a somatic-informed wellness practitioner, executive coach, and leader. And in this episode, we really talk about what it takes to build a thriving culture, some daily rituals and tools and practices that you can use to stay calm even in the highest of stakes. So let's dive into it. Hello, my friend.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
This has been a long time coming. I feel like we've been,
hey,
let's sit down and do a podcast for so long. So
yeah,
I'm really happy that you're here. Happy to have a conversation with you today.
me too.
What we're going to talk about today is so important through the lens of high performance leadership and really represents, a whole new track at the gathering and something we've been working on bringing to life since last year, which is great. And I know you bring so much wisdom and experience to this. So really pumped that you're here. You've been in the wellness space for 15 years. So maybe you can give us just a little overview of who you are and what you do and why this work is important to you.
Okay. Yeah. So, I used to work in corporate once upon a time, and I left that to start a yoga studio. And so I had several years in a couple yoga studios, training teachers, that sort of thing. And mentoring people and moving on to executive coaching and then landing in somatic experiencing therapy. And so all of those threads I've pulled on to weave together the work that I do. And I think what I mean to give what I do at a high level is it's a somatic informed mind movement, breath work, and self-inquiry practices that can be worked on, whether it's like personally or professionally, individually, or in groups. And so, there's different offerings in that suite, but that's the high level.
I love it. So let's 101 somatics. So buzzword,
yes,
right?
Super.
This is like
right
marketing.
Now.
Speaking of marketing,
Yes.
marketing buzzword.
Yeah.
Somatics, nervous system, regulation. Like, let's just break it down. What is somatics, and how is that different from just a regular movement practice?
Yeah, really good place to start. So you're right. Somatics is super buzzy. It's very trendy. I can feel like the wave is like right coming up behind us, but it's been somatic healing has been around for a long time, but now it's getting that
It's
traction.
just been branded.
It's been branded.
Yeah.
Exactly. So soma is the Greek word for the body. So essentially you could call many things somatics. Yoga is somatic. Walking down the street is somatic. Eating, somatic, right? Anything that involves the body, essentially. And so my background is in somatic experiencing therapy specifically. And so that approach is to look at somatics from a healing perspective so that we can work on healing trauma. So that's at like one end of the spectrum, but it's also a great way to manage stress. Okay. So that's where we are often all living on a daily basis, on a regular basis is in a stress zone.
Totally.
And so we work with the nervous system to help it regulate. And a regulated nervous system is not necessarily a calm nervous system. A healthy nervous system is not necessarily a calm nervous system. And so that's what I've seen, like kind of in the social media realm, is like a lot of like, let's orient towards calm. And what we want to do with somatic work is somatic healing work is remind the nervous system of its ability to go into rhythm. So to be able to go into stress zones and then to return to a place of relaxation and release the stress along the way, and then go back into stress and then come down again. So that helps us essentially to rebuild capacity.
Right.
Okay.
to go through all the rhythms of the day. And I love that. And I think that's such an important breakdown, because sometimes you can look at yourself at the, the calm, regulate your nerves, and then this calm, and then feel like you're doing it wrong if you're not. So tell me about some of the other, like, what's the other spectrum of that? If I'm not calm, what's on the other side?
I mean, like if I'm not calm, it could be that I am anxious, or I am stressed out, or I'm angry, or I have bad emotions, right? Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah. So it's kind of saying like those things aren't wrong.
That's right.
Inviting them all to the table.
Inviting
You're
it all
stressed,
to
and
the
that's
table.
okay. You can still be regulated and stressed.
Yeah. Well, so what I would say is we want to know when the body is under stress, right? We want to know when we walk into an environment that's not safe. We want our body to tell us that, right? And so part of this process is understanding, am I actually not safe, or am I perceiving that there is something here that's unsafe? And so the perception of, not being safe can be based on something that happened to us in the past.
Yeah.
And so that's where somatic experiencing comes in, as we want to start looking at what might be stuck in our body, right? If we don't process our emotions, if we don't process our past, if we're not dealing with our circumstances, it doesn't go away. Just like if you don't pay your bills,
Right.
they don't go away. Your debt doesn't go away. It just accumulates, right? And so we want to work at slowly kind of like paying that debt down, coming back into our emotions, feeling into our body to see what has been stored there, and to process that out so that the emotions from the past are no longer dictating our present or future outcomes.
Right. So why is this important for work, for leaders, for teams? Like, why is understanding these triggers and past and our body and sensations and stress, like why is that important?
Well, it's important for several reasons. One is, just stress management, period, which is can be pretty broad. And the way I think about stress management in a sense of working on it on a fairly regular basis. It might not be every single day, but the more aware we are of our emotions and of the sensations in our body, the more we can kind of acknowledge them and let that pressure come out of us, right? So we're releasing the valve on a regular basis so that the pressure doesn't build and then we blow up at work, right? Or we burn out, or we are no longer connected to our home life or our personal life, and all of our energy is going into our professional life, or vice versa, right? And so that's that emotional awareness. Somatic work helps to build emotional awareness and emotional intelligence, right? Another part of where somatic work is really beneficial to leaders is sometimes our past or our circumstances create patterns in us that are very successful, right? And even so we gain a level of success and we keep pulling a certain lever for that success, the lever can break.
Right.
The circumstances can change.
Yeah.
And then that's the only lever that you know, right? Or you're saying I've done this thing, I've done it this way for, my 20, 30 years in my career, but it's no longer working, or it's not speaking to people. The environment in which I'm in has changed. The landscape has changed. How do I adapt to that?
Right.
Right. And so it's really tricky to reprogram that part of ourselves. So when we, again, come back to emotional and somatic awareness, then we can start to understand what the triggers are or the friction is, so that we might be able to go, I do this thing a certain way, but if I want to make an adjustment, if I want to lead in a new way, it's not just the brain that has to change. Our nervous system has to catch up with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So would an example of that be like when I hear you say, you've been doing something for so long and that's worked until it hasn't,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to do something different. So when I hear you say, like, for me, it's like, okay, for a decade, I was able to run at full blast, full
Mm-hmm.
steam, and like, grind all the gears, and I could just sustain that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I can no longer sustain at that level, and I want to lead at a different level and work at a different level,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
would that be an example of that?
That's
And
a
then like
great
getting
example.
used to operating at a different speed.
Yes.
This is the post-burnout world, right?
Exactly.
Post-hustle culture world.
Exactly.
Asking for a friend.
That's asking for a friend. Asking for a few friends. Yeah, that's a really good example. So if you operate at a certain speed, at a certain level, and then at some point something changes.
Yeah.
And you can't do that anymore. It's not working anymore.
Mm.
And so what I love about somatics is we can start to, what I work with people is, first of all, reconnect. Like, what are you feeling? How do you know? What are the indicators? What's the feedback from the body of like, I can't operate at this level anymore?
Yeah.
And some of us, a lot of us who are moving quickly, doing a lot, going, slowing down is not a matter of just putting your foot on the brake and coming to a stop. It has to be like a pumping of the brakes to slow down. Like if you're driving into a corner, like down the highway, you want to put your foot on the brake before going into the corner, and then foot off the brake as you go around, so you don't lose control.
Yeah.
Right? And so we can think of our nervous system a lot like a brake and a gas pedal in a car, and the momentum.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to pull over, you've got to slow down to pull over versus you're going to crash.
Practice.
Yes. And so getting your nervous system so that it can follow, how do I want to say this? We want to work with the nervous system in what in somatic experiencing speak is like a tolerable way. We want it to be able to tolerate the change instead of demanding something very extreme and opposite.
Right.
Okay. So that your nervous system won't collapse with the change. It will, remember, we can do this up and down. We can make changes slowly, gradually. Okay. Does that help answer your question?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to think about the body needing to like condition itself to understand that peace could be a path as well, or like slowing down could be a path as well. You would think that would be good or better, and then we would be able to tolerate it faster. But what I'm hearing from you is like, just as you have to warm up the system just as much in that capacity. And depending on how long you've been running, that might be the harder.
That's right.
That might be harder. Yeah.
Because there is something here about, what you just said. You'd think that slowing down is better. You would think that rest is better. But if we're conditioned to go, slowing down or stopping does not feel safe, right? On a primal brain, it doesn't feel safe in our body because it's in such opposition.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've learned the tools, if you've gathered these tools and these strategies to be super successful by doing things a certain way, it's terrifying to think, I got to change something. What will that mean for my success?
Totally.
What will that mean for me as a leader if I start to make these changes? We want to gradually start going in a new direction.
And what does that mean for culture? Because I can see how, like, it's one thing for a leader to, start shifting their own habits and routines and pace, we'll say, but that safety and the impact within a culture and inside of an organization, like, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how could we, if we are in an environment that has traditionally been like push harder, go, do more, and then we're trying to essentially shift the nervous system of a culture.
Yeah.
Like, how would we begin doing that?
Well, I think that that's a good question. Well, I mean, I'm working with some teams right now who they're starting with a small pod within their team, and they're working with me one-on-one, and then we'll start working with the team like on a larger and larger scale. And so I think what is the real potential with, starting with like a high leadership in a more like higher leadership ranking is that they can start to understand the dynamics, and they can start to create a culture of connection.
Yeah.
Right. And last year when I was speaking on the panel at the gathering, it was the idea that vulnerability creates connection, right? And connection creates trust. You don't have trust without either of those things.
Totally.
And so when we start, I think as leaders, like start as an inside job, and then gradually grow it into your team. What would feel safe, I think, for a lot of people is starting in that smaller team and then going into a larger team and then into a larger team from there. Okay, so it's a lot about safety. So as leaders, what is going to feel safe for you, but still like give you something that's going to feel a little risky at the same time. Because remember, we want that fluctuation. We want a little bit of activation of like, oh, this feels risky, this feels different, but still have a safe container to do it in, a safe resource to come back to.
I love that.
Yeah.
As leaders, we bring the weather, right? So it always starts with us. And I know how important this work is to be doing individually and to acknowledge the signs. And inside teams, it's like if your team and the individuals in the team are constantly burning out or constantly sick or, performance is actually struggling, that's when we have to pay attention and say, one, what is my role in this? And two, how can we create more safety and connection? And is that right?
Yeah. And I think, like, what does safety mean? That might be a good way to start the conversation with whether it's a part of your team or your whole team with yourself. What does safety feel like in your body? And safety or security or, language in that realm. Some of us don't even know what that means. Like we haven't stopped to consider that for a while. Yeah. That's a good place to start. What does safety even mean? Because we want an idea of safety before we start to a place to return to before we start to go into the scary. Because change is scary. Your brain is adverse to change.
Totally.
Right? The brain's job is to keep you alive. And it does that by being efficient. So it does the same thing over and over and over again unless we change it.
Run from the saber-toothed tiger.
That's right.
Sometimes that's just like an email arrives and it's like, we're being chased by a tiger.
That's right. Oh, wait, the tiger is not even in the room.
Tiger's not here. So powerful. Okay, starting with safety. And is that a conversation that you would suggest having as a group? Or defining as a leader first?
That's a really good question. I would say as a leader, it starts with you.
Yeah.
Right? And your idea of safety, your feeling of safety, your resource of safety, it very well might not be the same as anyone else, right? It's a very individualistic thing. Then when you start to go into, so if you have an idea of what safety is to you, even coming into that and then going to your team and asking your team what safety is, what security is, you're already resourced inside yourself and ready for those answers to be very different.
Totally.
Right? So the answers can be different, and then potentially coming up to like, what does safety mean for us as a whole? So as every single individual has their own sense of safety insourced versus outsourced, then the outsourced shared sense of safety can be something that we come up with together.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and think about like the ROI of safety is creativity and connection and collaboration, right? And it's
That's true.
if we can really create these environments where to thrive, under pressure even.
Mm-hmm.
It is, are people safe to fail? Are they safe to
Mm-hmm.
try things? Are they safe to innovate? Are they safe to get it wrong? Are they safe to try again? Are they safe to speak up? Are they safe to use their voice? And the impact of that can be so huge for an organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've done a couple sessions with you with our
Mm-hmm.
gathering team as well, and I always love to do them around sprints when we're, really thinking about what does the next 90 days look like and what are the targets and all those things. And the work that we do is like, how do we just sort of pause for a
Mm-hmm.
moment and reset and come back to ourselves? And
Mm-hmm.
how can we, release the pressure a little bit that's sometimes in the pressure cooker.
Yes.
And I've seen, such great shifts in my team, and I'd love to just switch gears to talk a little bit about performance under pressure and how operating at this space of like flow and creativity instead of clenching
Yes.
and pushing can actually be a lot more productive for teams. So
Absolutely.
let's go there. Like, how's your nervous system have anything to do with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I can share a little bit about my experience working with the gathering team.
Absolutely.
What I find is really fantastic about working with your team is you set your team up so that after a deep dive strategy session, whether it's a day or multiple days, and then we meet up and we do our thing. And we start off with a check-in of like, where are you at? Every single member in the room. Where are you at? What are you feeling? And keyword, what are you feeling? Right? What do you feel right now? And 9 times out of 10, people are like, they start to get intellectual about it, right? So they're like thinking. And so they come into like, things that you guys have been talking about.
Yeah.
And then we do our work together. And at the end, the check-in, now again, how are you feeling? What do you notice? And now all of a sudden, I feel empowered. And there's new ideas that are coming through, new perspectives. And so people are then coming into their bodies. And that's what's like really powerful is when we are in a state of fear, essentially, right? When we're in a state of fear, there's contraction, right? We start to go into more towards like primal survival brain.
Yeah.
And so it's just like a matter of surviving.
Yeah.
When we can, start to move some of this energy through our body and breathe it through our body, let some of this go, come into that emotional awareness, then it's like cleaning the pipes and then the connection of the body to the mind, it takes us up into executive function, right? So the wisdom in the body hits the brain. And that's where we come into like, I know this to be true. I can feel it. It's like a gut instinct versus like, I think this is what we can do here, right?
Yeah.
And so it becomes an embodiment of creativity or an embodiment of what we're going to do next versus just an idea, right? Or
for sure.
a strategy.
I think it's so important right now more than ever. A lot of businesses, a lot of leaders, a lot of teams, like we're operating from a new playbook and we're wanting to build a new way forward and to do things differently. And in order to do things differently, there needs to be a lot of trust, honestly.
Yeah.
And when that fear comes in, and I've felt this in myself too, like trying to do a new way and then you hit obstacles and then like it doesn't work and then a door gets slammed or you get a no or, things just like aren't working. The temptation is to go back and do the last thing that worked.
Yeah.
But that's not always the right thing. And we have to really trust that and pay attention. And that's what I found with our work together and with the team work together is like, it's almost just like an opening of capacity for that. Like, let's try something new. Let's get creative. Let's unclench our fists. Actually, I was the one at the last one that you're like, I think my check-in word was pressure, for sure. I was feeling
there's a lot of pressure in the room that day.
But we're breaking trail right now. Like that, like the reality is behind the scenes, we are trying new things. We are opening up a whole new chapter for the gathering and for where we want to go, and the work we want to do, whether it's becoming a media company and adding festival elements or adding human performance elements. Like, there's a lot of change happening that we have to acknowledge that is here. And with that, there comes a lot of cutting your teeth. And that's the year we're having. And it's good, but it's good.
It's expansion.
It's expansion. And I think that this type of work and just such a reminder for anyone that's listening to this that is also navigating a season of change is we have to prepare our bodies for it. It's a mind, body, soul commitment, I feel. And in creating that space for the team too, I think it's almost been like a place that we can release a little bit of pressure and then stay on our path and not go back to the old way.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, because I actually have a question for you. So you said I came into that session, my word was pressure. Do you remember how you felt afterwards?
Yeah, I was actually looking through my notes yesterday, and my word was possibility at the end. So it was literally from pressure to possibility. Ooh, good alliteration. I love that. Love that.
So good.
From pressure to possibility. I think that might have even been the theme for our last session. But yeah, and something you said, so Randelle's work is amazing. Everyone that's listening needs to check out the Rare Method plug. But in the body-based practice of it, like, you had this cue, and it was something around, like, it takes more energy to clench than it does to flow. And in that moment, I actually felt even my hands unclench and realized, like, oh, wow, it's actually so much harder to hold my fists like this than it is to just, like, release and let things go. And what a metaphor for life and for business.
Yeah. And so you had this, I came in with pressure, I came out with possibility.
Yes.
The circumstances that you were stepping back into in that 3-hour workshop hadn't changed.
They hadn't
But you
changed.
went into this
I
pressure
changed.
cooker with possibility instead of compounding the pressure. Right? So I just want to be clear again, we're not looking to just go into, like, my hands are always open.
No.
Like, I'm always soft. I'm always
Sometimes it's like, please, please help me.
We need to also be able to, like, tighten up, close the fist, brace ourselves. Discernment, because we need both sides of this equation, right? We need to be able to walk into a room and be like, okay, I've got to be dialed into this, not sitting back into my chair.
Yes.
Right? So you become more discerning.
Totally.
And that's where I think the superpower comes. You're not just like, I'm going to keep hitting the same button for the same thing over and over again. You go, this button will work for this. I'm going to build a new button for this. We're going to try something else out here. Right? So then it's just more discernment across the board. So you're not getting a single result. You're going to work on tweaking it to get different results.
So this discernment can only start with awareness, and it can only start with understanding your own emotions, how you are feeling, so that you can kind of set the tone for a culture. I think this would be a great segue for you to share with us a little bit of the method, because Rare Method, it's an acronym, and there's different steps to the program that you walk people through workshops. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's a couple meanings to Rare Method. So yes, the first is it's an acronym. So it stands for reconnect, audit, recalibrate, and embody. And so from a high level, reconnect is like, how do I feel in my body right now? And really coming into body speaking versus brain speaking, mind speaking. So right now in this moment, if I pause, I can feel, do it too with me. So I can feel like the grain of this table. That's a sensation, right? There's a felt sensation there. When I rub my hands across it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? There's a texture. And then, so that's very superficial, which is fine. It's it's still present moment. I'm connecting, reconnecting. And then in my chest, I can feel like my heart rate's a little elevated because I'm a little nervous, right? That's there.
Studio lights will do that.
Exactly. But what doesn't help is if I'm like, it's not there. I'm going to ignore that. I'm just going to push it down, bringing some awareness to that and letting that sensation exist. So letting the awareness comes by letting something exist. All right. So I'm just going to let that exist. And I'm like, oh, I can feel a little bit in my tummy too, like high in my tummy. So if I just let that feeling exist, track that sensation, and then audit is to ask, what do I need? What is my body asking for? So if you may have noticed 10 seconds ago, I took a deep breath. That's my body wanting to breathe. It's going, oh, you're paying attention to me. Whew. And that feeling's already starting to dissipate. It's already starting to recalibrate. So now I know my nervous system is changing.
Totally.
Right? So that feeling high in my chest is like, I'm slightly activated. Right? I'm like a little scared. Right? It's a little risky. There's cameras on me.
Totally. Yeah.
It feels a little risky. It's exposing.
Yeah.
But as I come into my body and have that feeling, it starts to discharge. That energy, that emotion starts to discharge. I'm already more grounded, right? And then I get to sit here and embody that of like,
Totally.
oh, I'm here with my friend Mandy.
Yeah.
Right? I'm here in this moment. How exciting. How do I want to feel in this moment? What is the energy that I want to put out into this conversation and into the world? And so that comes from the inside out. And so that's like that's the high level. It also gets broken down. Like I teach movement classes where we go through some like real discharging of energy. And it can be quite a landscape of like emotional release. And then I work with people one-on-one where we might go into, whether somebody's wanting to perform at work, change their leadership style, or with their team, or people who are trying to move the needle in their personal life.
Yeah. They're
trying to heal something. They're trying to understand a part of themselves. And then there's like retreats and all that sort of thing. So it starts like we have high level, and then we can get really like deep dive into audits with like workshops and tools and that sort, and like, really diving in.
Totally.
But at the whole, it's that acronym.
I love it.
And then the other part for what rare means is this is like more of like a feel of something, is that in each of us, there is something that is rare, right? Nobody else can be Mandy. Nobody else can be Randelle. And so the way that I kind of picture when we're aligned with ourselves, it's like imagine standing underneath a spotlight. And when you're aligned, that light is like shining on all parts of you. And when you start looking to someone else to be like, they're doing really well. What if I did a little bit more of what they're doing? And then you start to move out of the light.
Oh, that's such a good example.
Yeah. So we want to get into alignment. And so when we come into, we get into alignment by working on this like somatic baggage.
Yeah.
Right? Because the reason why we start looking outside of ourselves is because we aren't seeing what's inside of ourselves. And so we want to come back into what's rare. It's only ours, right? So that can be done in your business as well, in your brand, getting really aligned on what is yours and no one else's. So that even if somebody comes in and tries to replicate it, it can't be replicated. It can be copied, but it can't, the feel of it cannot be replicated.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that there's a few things there I want to touch on, but first I want to go back to, your example of just bringing your emotions to the, like, acknowledging how you're feeling and letting that be okay. And I felt the energy shift in here when we did that, and just such a reminder to, like, the power of that pause and just the noticing how that can really take the pressure out and, like, the air out of the room.
Yeah.
And even just saying it without having a solution for it or whatever, it made it, it just sort of regulated everything a little bit,
Yeah.
And think about that in a meeting, in a team environment. Stakes are high. Everyone's trying to perform at their highest level and have it all together or whatever. And all it takes is one person to say like, hey, I'm feeling really nervous right now.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I'm feeling like I don't know what's next. Or, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
How that can actually just really invite connection
Mm-hmm.
in the room and allow us to just like overcome that together,
Mm-hmm.
So I think just a really powerful moment to take pause.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be so simple. Check in, how am I feeling? And then how can you create that environment
Mm-hmm.
for your team and your community to do that as well?
Yeah.
So, really powerful.
I would love to just add to that, because for some people, for many of us, frankly, to even think about doing something like that can be like, all right,
I'm sorry.
that feels really terrifying,
Yeah.
right? Or that feels like that's not part of what we're doing. Like that's never been done before.
We got to get shit done. There's no time for that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I just had a conversation with someone I'm working with where they said like they've moved into a new role, and at first like there's this nervousness about speaking up into this new role. And this person was like kind of feeling badly about that. And I gave them a reframe of like, hey, you're taking in a new environment essentially. So can you pause with what you feel and just go, oh, I'm feeling this right now. I might not be vocalizing myself, whether it's my ideas or what I'm feeling, but to actually, because that might feel too scary. So we don't want to surpass the nervous system's capacity, right? Because it can collapse the nervous system. So even having this pause of, oh, I'm feeling really afraid right now. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling angry. And now isn't the time to express that. It's either not safe or it's not appropriate, because sometimes it's not appropriate to express.
Yeah.
And so just having a moment, this is a very common piece of homework that I give to my clients, is like when you have that feeling of just having even the briefest pause of, oh, I'm feeling something right now, and saying to body, I'm clocking this. I'm going to come back to this as soon as I can. As soon as I can. So then what that does is it registers to the body, oh, somebody's listening.
Yeah.
My person is listening to me. I'm not being ignored. I don't need to put this, like, seal this down. I don't need to put this into, like, the baggage compartment. We're going to come back to this. Okay. I've been acknowledged, and then come back to it.
Totally.
Like, okay, we had a moment today. I felt these feelings. They might not come up as strongly, but it's rebuilding the relationship with yourself.
And those small things add up.
They do.
And every little small investment, we'll call that investment in the bank account. It's compounding, it's adding up, right. It's increasing capacity for bigger things. Speaking up in a meeting all of a sudden could turn into speaking on a stage. Like what is the next level of you? It's the road is small promises kept to yourself.
That is exactly
and then the
right.
opposite of that is the more you ignore, and the more you ignore, the negative impacts of that is I can't trust myself, and then you're on edge and stay stuck.
Yeah, and it can catch up to you in extreme ways.
Yeah.
Extreme ways, like sickness.
Burnout. Really like burnout over and over again of like not speaking your truth, not acknowledging what you're feeling. Like burnout isn't always what you're doing, but it is the things that you're not saying and the things that you're not acknowledging about how you're feeling, and even like being in alignment with the things that you're here to do, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So give us, you mentioned like, here's my small piece of homework. Give us a few things that we could start taking away today. We've got a marketing leader listening to this, or a leader of a team, or, someone inside of an organization that works in high pressure. They're interested in some of the things you're sharing. Like, what are some of the small daily practices that we could start exploring for ourselves?
Yeah. So I would say, like, keyword, start small. Like, start small, so that it's like these small little nibbles, right? Small little nibbles, so that you can digest it at a speed that is possible. So I love that acknowledgement of the feelings. Just pausing in the moment. Oh, I'm feeling something right now. I'm going to come back to that as soon
Yeah.
as I can. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a very big one. And then on the flip side, or like not the flip side, but sometimes, we have a blowout or something happens, coming out of it and doing a postmortem of like, what was happening inside of me? What was I feeling? What was happening before I went into that meeting?
Right.
What happened in that meeting? And there's the intellectual story where you can go like, oh, this and then this and then this happened. But come into the story of the nervous system. What was the felt sensation? Felt sensation could be like tingles. My stomach was stirring. I felt hot, right? So that's felt sensation. You might recognize what the emotions are, but let's really come into felt sensation. So then what that can help you do is like, oh, I had all of these feelings. I've had those feelings before. Those sensations tend to happen when I'm in this type of situation or these types of circumstances, so that it gives you like the feedback afterwards, give you the clues for when it's going to start happening in the future.
Yeah.
So then you're already like, oh, I know this feeling. Oh, I'm going to acknowledge it now so that it doesn't boil over, that I'm now having more discernment. I have more emotional awareness around this. And I can step into the same circumstances with a different level of awareness so the outcome isn't always the same. Okay. So to like boil that down again is just after something's happened, take inventory of what you're feeling. And then what else? Another tool that can also be done in like a journaling, like whether it's like morning papers or evening papers, right? It's a collection of like what happened during the day, what went on today.
Yeah.
And my biggest suggestion around that is like write like nobody's gonna ever read it,
Burn your morning papers.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Because when we start to get what happens when we can get too concerned about how it reads is then we start to come up here,
too heady,
and out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I have specific journals for my morning papers that I never, like I have a rule never to go back and read them. Was it Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way? She talks about morning papers.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. And she says in her book, she's like, morning papers are for nobody else to see. You need a burning ritual so that like once a month you just burn it.
That's right.
And then that just allows for that space for just like, let it out, let it flow, let it go.
Yeah.
Learn from it, move on.
That's right. That's right.
None of this is going to end up on Instagram. Gosh.
Exactly. And then I think I would give one more tip is ask your body what it wants to do, how it wants to move, how it wants to make sound, how it wants to be breathed. And that might be like shaking your hands out or jumping up and down or like, tapping on your own body.
Yeah.
And at first it will feel very weird because it's very counterculture to do that.
Yeah.
So, but that's what our bodies are meant to do. An animal shakes this off.
Yeah.
So we want to go back. If we're working with primal brain, we want to work with our bodies in that way too.
How do you think that this all applies for high performance leadership? Like our theme for this year is winning the future together. And it's a space for high performance leaders. Like high performance brands require high performance leaders. But high performance doesn't mean grind the gears all the day.
Yeah.
High performance means like coming back to yourself and really defining who you want to be as a leader. So maybe just to wrap it up today, like connect the dots for us on how this can actually, the slowdown, the pause, connecting with ourselves can actually help us step into the highest expression of ourselves.
Well, I think as, a lot of people, when we think about performance, it can come with like that go, 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 which is override what my body's telling me to do. Yeah. And so by pulling back from that incrementally and having those moments of pause, then you're not just going to keep going forward in the same direction. So if you want a new future, you have to activate new patterns in your body. And that can be done through body-based work. And then that can be done through nervous system based work that you act out in real life, in real time. Does that help?
I love it. Sustainability is what I'm hearing from you. Like this is the path to sustainability, sustainable performance, building to last.
That's right. So go in and come out, go in and come out, go in and come out.
Tell me about your daily rituals, your morning practice. Like, do you have a consistent morning routine or a daily routine to just check in with you?
It is, I'm someone who needs to move every day. I need to move my body every day. And so I don't like to, I actually kind of move away from like routine, even though I am like, I'm a pretty routine person when it comes to wellness. And I like to move away from like, it has to be A plus B plus C plus D.
Totally.
And that comes back into this rare method concept. It's like reconnect. What is happening right now? Audit. What do I need right now? I might need to go for a walk. I might need sunlight. I might need to sit down and write something out. I might need to go and jump up and down and like shout and shake my body.
Yeah.
And so asking and letting the body regain its confidence in telling you what it needs, right? And so my daily, the routine that I do on a daily basis is movement, right? That doesn't always have to happen in the morning.
And it doesn't have to be the same thing every day. I love that. It's such a good permission. Like
every day.
Consistency looks like checking in and saying, what do I need today? And then doing that. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the non-negotiable is that it's movement of some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Breathing,
love it.
Journaling, cooking.
Yes.
Like cooking and cleaning makes me feel grounded. It has a visceral feeling in my body. Right. So what is the visceral feeling for you that's gives you groundedness, centeredness?
Yeah.
What is the action?
Yeah.
What is the thing that gives that to you?
I love it. Walking the dog.
Yeah,
cooking,
exactly.
Clean house. I'm with you on that. That's our tourist spot.
It's tactile.
Yeah.
Right? It's physical.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Tell us where we can find more of you. How can we find out about the Rare Method? What do you got coming up? I know you're going to be at the gathering again this year, which I'm so excited.
Very excited. It's like inked in my calendar, not penciled, inked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my website is raremethod.com. Instagram is The Rare Method. You can reach out to me through either of those platforms. The website has, we have a digital movement studio, so with monthly or annual membership. There's also retreats that I offer annually. I'll have some Canadian retreats next year. A lot of my retreats are international. So if you want like a sunny winter getaway, I work with teams doing bespoke offsites or like in-shop team sessions. And what am I missing?
I don't know, but here's the plug and the recommendation. It's been so helpful for our team, and I love it. We really look forward to it. The whole team really looks forward to it. And it's just been a really great addition to our sprint kickoffs. So that's awesome. There's your endorsement, your team endorsement. I highly recommend. And if you're local and in Calgary, on studio as well, there's some live sessions that you can pop into as well. So
that's right.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me here.
Awesome.
This was great.